Alright, I'm getting ready to put the gearbox from the combine grain tank loading auger back together here. Um, so I've got the output shaft side in already. So this is what hooks on, or there's a kind of a gear, I guess we'll call it. It's like a four-pronged contraption that goes on there and then has a keyway and a nut that tightens down. However, I haven't torqued the nut on the inside here yet because I figured I would wait until I did the other one. So I've got the new shaft now. That's the revised design. There's a couple bearings that go in here. So there's one bearing down at the bottom there, and then one here, and a snap ring. It doesn't have any holes to get snap ring pliers on, which makes it really fun to get in and out. So that's the next thing to kind of go together here. And then once the shaft is in and the snap ring is in, then the gear goes on the back side. Or the bearings, the shaft can maybe slide through the bearings. So I think we put the bearings in first and then shove the shaft through. There's a spacer between the two bearings that kind of holds everything together. But that's basically the game plan. Try to get the gear on the shaft, get this nut and the corresponding nut on the input side torqued on, and then get the cover sealed back up with some silicone and install the seals on the other side, and then it will be ready to go back in the combine or fill with oil and go back in the combine. Haven't decided yet if I'm going to fill it before I put it in there or not. All right, we are together. I haven't officially torqued these yet, but need to go for this evening, so this is probably where it's going to be. I've got everything. All right, I tightened it with battery impact, so it should be relatively tight. It's not to spec tight, but at least the retaining compound that I put on the lower bearing, there was a little bit of marking in this housing that we suspected that the outer race might have turned, but weren't real sure. It wasn't torn up enough to replace the housing, but put a little bit of retaining compound in there when we put it together. And as I was kind of going through this process, it looks like the back bearing is kind of the one that holds everything in the right spot, and then that one gets sucked into wherever the shoulder on the shaft puts it, or the shoulder on the shaft and the spacing, or the spacer in between the bearings sort of locates that outer bearing. So everything is together. It was a little bit tricky in that I got the shaft all in and then realized that I couldn't get the gear to pop in where it needed to go. The gear had to be there as the shaft went in, so I had to knock the shaft out. However, it seemed like having the gear there maybe helped the shaft go in the right spot, or maybe I got some things coaxed in, or putting it together the first time helped out that situation. I don't know. But anyway, basically need to torque these, put the seals on the outside, and put that drive gear thing on the output side of the gearbox, and then seal up, or put the cover on the back here and seal it up with some silicone. So progress. Didn't get completely finished, but didn't have too long to spend on it this evening, so should be able to get it finished up tomorrow, hopefully. All right, we are all back together. Haven't put oil in the gear case yet. We got the shafts in, seals in, the other one down in here. Got the back cover all put on, and as you can see, we've got the RTV squeezing out there. So I did it a while ago, so you have to let it kind of cure for an hour or so and then tighten the bolts down. But I think I'm going to let it cure a little bit further and then get them a little tighter just to make sure that they don't back out without squeezing it too super thin. There's also a couple spots, it must be like the direction that the grain comes into this, which would make sense because it would be falling kind of through this direction. But there was kind of some wear on the housing, the aluminum part here, and also the little metal or steel shield. So I kind of welded that up to add some thickness to the side that was thin, and then took some JB weld and kind of smeared it all over the aluminum there to provide a little bit more abrasion material or material to abrade away before it gets into the aluminum again. I mean, it's not thin enough that it's going to cause a problem, but just since we've got it torn apart, it seemed like maybe not a bad idea. So that's going to take a few hours to dry. I think it's 12 hours at least to cure, and maybe 4 to 6 or something like that before you can handle it. So we're not going to put it back in the combine right away, just to make sure that we don't get that the JB weld or the silicone all over ourselves, hoisting it up there and everything. But otherwise, it should be ready to go back in. So be able to kind of get that all put back together, hopefully, between working on other stuff here this spring, and then that'll be one less thing on the to-do list to get the combine ready to go later in the fall. It is a windy booger out today. We're actually under a wind advisory. However, the sun is shining, so things are drying out halfway decent. I don't know if it's going to be dry enough to do anything tomorrow. I don't think it'll be dry enough today for sure. Plus, as windy as it is, it's going to be miserable to try to do anything, because any soybean stubble that I disturb with the applicator is going to blow all over the place and cause problems anyway. So since it's kind of marginal conditions, or at best case marginal conditions, not going to try to do anything today probably, but still have some optimism that maybe we'll be able to go tomorrow late morning or sometime in the afternoon. But we'll see what happens.